how will that index token precisely look like? Is that just a vault where there's like, if I put $100 into it, I have immediate exposure to like just every IBC asset, or like how is that determined, and who creates the pool and how does it work?
So first of all, about the Atom thing, again, it literally happened to me, right? Like, it's super confusing to invest into Cosmos, and it's also, I think, the only ecosystem where that really is the case, right? Because we are the app chain thesis ecosystem. So yeah, that's a unique problem, right? That's why the index strategy is not just kind of a joke, but an actual necessity, as you said. The way it would work is essentially, and by the way, if the token allocations that we decide don't need to be the ones that the community decides, right? So we can also have different indexes by different people and communities deciding how to invest their money. But essentially, the way it's going to work is there's going to be an allocation, let's say, just for the sake of its simplicity, 1/3 Atom, 1/3 Osmo, 1/3 Mars, right? And if you deposit the liquidity into the vault, it's going to deposit those into the actual assets on the destination chains. And then if you bond your vault share the same way, like when you do superfluid staking on Osmosis, right? You bond your LP position, it allows you to then stake the underlying assets. Or better yet, the vault does it for you. And then if you redeem the vault shares, you can always send the vault back your shares, and then you're going to get the underlying assets. Obviously, if they're staked, you need to wait for unstaking period, but if they're not staked, you can do it immediately. The way that in the future, soon TM, classic, governance is going to work is it's going to be independent from the chain. So vaults are going to have their own governance just by people that deposit into the vault. So you can have, in a way, like DAO, your own communities around a fund, right? I mean, the vault is nothing else than a pool of money. They can either stake it, be super aggressive, invest into early stage projects, LP positions, a mix of all of that. And so in the same way, in the future, you can just govern what you want the index to look like in the actual vault and have those adjustments be made.
And what about the entry barriers and like fees? Can just anybody create their own vault and like campaign for it for people to invest? And can they also have like a business model, or how does that work?
Totally. So there's going to be a lockup in QUASAR, but we think it's going to be lower in the beginning, much lower, and then rise as kind of adoption starts, because we're going to have to adopt the same model as Osmosis. We have a frontier and a non-frontier, so that we can always guarantee permissionless vault creation. But obviously, trust is a big part of kind of, like navigating trust and making sure you don't need to trust is a big part of strategy. So it's very important to kind of have a distinction between frontier and non-frontier. But yeah, technically, if you know how to COSM and the chains that we work with, again, right, there needs to be interchain accounts, interchain queries, and then obviously always caveats. But generally speaking, I would suspect in the next few months that most chains that you guys all care about and invest in are going to adopt it. You can start creating your own strategies and run them and advocate for them and have people deposit into them. And you can have a profit share, like a hedge fund manager, right? If you have a strategy, or you can have a 0% profit share, right? Maybe you just kind of want to solve a problem for the destination chain, right? Maybe you just want to deposit liquidity in illiquid pools, and it's not really about making a lot of money in that process. So it's really up to the creator what they want to do with it.
And this is primarily focused on like the Cosmos and ecosystem and IBC chains, or are you also like long-term looking to get out there to like other ecosystems in crypto?
Yeah. So because of my opinion of validator bridges and just multi-sig bridges, where essentially you can never transfer the actual asset, you always just transfer an IOU or a representation, a synthetic, right? Because of that, I think I can relatively guaranteed say that we won't use bridges. But as IBC expands, which it definitely will beyond Cosmos, we are going to expand with it. We see ourselves much more like an IBC app chain that happens to be on Cosmos right now, right? And also to kind of link that back to your Switzerland question, right? That's kind of what we mean by that in an easy way. It's that we are a neutral party because everyone is fighting for TVL, right? Like there's so many battles on Cosmos. Obviously, we as kind of the builders, we kick it, right? We like each other, we got drinks, but on the ecosystem level, there's massive fights everywhere around liquidity. We don't participate. We are neutral in that sense. We're Switzerland because we only kind of go for assets under management because the liquidity will never stay on our chain. So other chains love us because we don't compete with liquidity with them. We are actually sending them liquidity. So we are actually, exactly who they want to work with. That makes us a neutral position. And that's also the reason we are our own app chain and not built on, let's say, Osmosis or Atom, right? We are very closely aligned with both, but we cannot be neutral once we take a step to one or the other direction, right? So that, again, it needs to be clear for everyone that uses QUASAR. This is a safe place, whether you believe in Kujira more than Injective, or in Injective more than Osmosis, or Osmosis more in Juno, right? Anything is free for you. Any strategy can be built on any chain. We have no objection to you doing that, and we want to make sure that that is free. And for the sake of the meme, this doesn't mean you can hide your money in QUASAR. That's not what I mean with Switzerland. You can't do that in Switzerland anymore. Regulation changed. So that's not what I mean by that. It's really just a neutral position and the access to anything. Yeah.
Nice. And you just said QUASAR itself doesn't hold any liquidity. The liquidity is always on the destination chain. Like, can you maybe explain that in simple terms, what exactly that means, and like what at the end of the day is kind of like the purpose of the QUASAR chain? Like, what does it hold? What does it do?
Totally. So the way that the current user experience in Cosmos is that a lot of people have to keep switching between different chains to just do the same action, right? Like, let's say restaking rewards or re-LPing the pool positions. What QUASAR does is it automates and controls positions on different chains. So essentially, your user experience could be you just go to QUASAR, and whether in the future you create your own vault or you have existing vaults, right? You pick what you want to invest into. It's non-custodial. There's no private keys in the smart contracts, and you just decide what you want to invest into. You do essentially one transaction, again, soon TM, but the team is working on that, we can even take the tokens from a different chain and make them like do the transaction to QUASAR for you. And then the second you do a transaction in QUASAR, we are sending the liquidity into the vault strategy you chose, which will not be on the QUASAR chain. It will be either Osmosis, right, or Juno, on all the other chains. So that's what I mean by that. The liquidity will be controlled from the QUASAR chain and will be governed from the QUASAR chain and will be deposited from the QUASAR chain, but it's actually not sitting on the QUASAR chain.
Yeah.